Okay, a trending topic discussion that's something I might know a little bit about, being as I am the titled Holy Grail descendant from the line of Jesus that typically administers minister services and that sort of stuff and have a lifetime of study. So I noticed a trending topic that says facts about hell. And I thought, yay! That's one I know a little bit about, although I have to state a caveat that I always state in things like this. I don't like the word facts because when it comes to the afterlife and supernatural stuff, we are still learning. Science has not yet proven everything, and I come from a science background in like geology, working with plasma and Tesla coils, helping my inventor grandpa with his food dehydrator prototype. And like, I come from a logical science background, but I'm also a holy figure, so I believe in both, and I kind of tend to utilize both. And I do a lot of doing a lot of little scientific tests on things to try to learn more. So here's what I've gathered. These are my theories within the Holy Family, based on 3 decades of research. This includes historical accounts in literature, that might have similarities and common things, along with my own experience as somebody who administers holy services, which can be anything from blessing babies, healing people, officiating weddings, the occasional miracle, even to sometimes having to work with demons, get rid of a demon, or throw souls into the lake of fire. So we still do a lot of those kinds of skills, and I feel like I'm practiced enough at these things, and I've even got some demos up for educational and research purposes, because these are still things we're learning about. When you get the same consistent results over and over, though, that tends to be super helpful in terms of trying to prove stuff in a non-biased scientific way. So that's how I approach everything. I did a study on ferrets when I was in college, so I'm aware of the scientific method and how to approach stuff like that. And even when I am trying to do more research into supernatural or afterlife stuff, or otherworldly religious stuff, I try to go about it that way. I try to test this stuff. I try to get repeat results in terms of looking for commonalities and correlations and stuff. So I'll state that as a disclaimer that I don't use the word facts when it comes to this stuff. I'll state that I'm a believer, that I think I've experienced enough, that I feel like I feel a bit more confident in the things I'm talking about here today. But I get that this stuff is so unknown that people in this day and age are still very confused by this stuff, and it does depend on which faith you come from, and what your learning is on the subject. Not everybody even believes in heaven or hell. So we'll go from the fact that it's my Christian Holy Family perspective from the Grail line, which is a more open-minded view also of Christianity. We believe that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married, and that we're their modern-day descendants, or extended Holy Family descendants, since there could have been 4 to 8 people that showed up on the boat in France after the crucifixion. So here's my take. What we do have is some common historical accounts that hell might be divided into 9 rungs. There also might be rungs in heaven that get up into the 20s. Hell might have 9 that has been outlined in accounts like Dante's Inferno. where it lists the specific rungs. It describes an entire layout for a city down there, just like Sophia's account describes a light city up in heaven. You get some specific details of what the place looked like and what was going on down there. So that's one of the better ones we have, and sometimes there's some correlations between Dante's Inferno and old Egyptian practices and mythology, which is going to get interesting here in a second. So what I've learned so far is there could be different rungs down there. There is an intake line at some gates once you get down there, and I think I've seen this when I've thrown people into volcanoes before and seen it spurt up in the lava. You can sometimes get a life reading on how naughty somebody was for confirmation, and you kind of get a confirmation spurt that they landed down there in what I call the intake line, the front entrance. Everybody line up and wait your turn to go through the gates, where you'll get stripped of your vestments. We do have an account from a goddess in ancient times named Inanna, who descended down there to rescue someone, and her description is also very similar, of there being gates, getting stripped of her vestments. So it does, we've got three historical accounts here that tend to line up, although their takes on it might be slightly different in certain aspects. So some of the rungs are lust, gluttony, greed, wrath, heresy, one that I'll just call DV because I can't say the actual word, fraud, and treachery, or the traitor's rung. The traitor's rung being the innermost rung, with the most security and the toughest one. This is for the worst of the worst offenders. When you get down there, just like they say with going to heaven, you get sorted according to your deeds. So I think you get kind of assigned like a sorting hat at the gates when you get stripped of your vestments, and okay, what were your sins and which rung is most appropriate for you. What goes on in each of these rungs has been depicted in movies like Dante's Inferno, which sometimes you can find free online. Might be a good Halloween movie for some people out there that are curious about this subject. But it shows a man's descent down there, getting assigned to the traitor's rung, having to do manual labor while being tortured and confronted every day with his sins during his life on earth, and how tormenting that was to him. So it's really heavy. It's a heavy story, heavy content. It's said that there's also, according to sources like the Ars Gotia or the Greater and Lesser Key of Solomon, which have some similarities as well, again, that I'll point out, there could be up to 72 high demons down there, and these are the demons that have leadership positions and help run these rungs. And they seem to go on a kind of monarchy system, but also have presidents. So they've got kings, princes, dukes, marquises, and these are high demons. And each demon has a different element, different planets and metals, different attributes, different abilities. Some are only helpful demons of knowledge, while others, they say, have more active abilities. I've worked with both, and yeah, have I seen what could be some active manifestors during my life? Yeah, I think I probably have. I had a demon that fixed my menorah because for some reason he seems to affect electricity, and we don't quite know why. And I had a broken menorah over Hanukkah, because we also celebrate a diverse range of holidays within the Holy Family. The way we celebrate is a little bit different. We have some Jewish roots, so we celebrate some of their holidays that are important to us, but we also celebrate things like Mary Magdalene's feast day, which is a more regional holiday from like southern France. It's not always celebrated across like all of Christianity or all of Catholicism. So we kind of have our own version of holidays within the Holy Family. We also celebrate some astrological events, astronomical events, when there's eclipses or conjunctions. Those things we also observe and sometimes celebrate too, almost like a holiday. So our kind of brand of how we do in the Holy Family Grail line is a lot more eclectic. It's a bit more different. We believe that Jesus went around teaching everywhere he went, but also learning from the various communities he traveled to. He may have studied with the Essenes, the Gnostics, and he would have learned different ways of Christianity, different cultural traditions entirely, in different areas of the world that he traveled to. And sometimes you can see those teachings come out later on in his travels, which is really interesting. Like towards the end of Mary Magdalene's life and her gospel, that's not part of the official canon, but there is one. She's sounding more Gnostic, so we think that some of Jesus' learning with the Gnostics and John the Baptist may have happened a little bit later on, and that's when you get into what the rungs of heaven look like and what kind of offenses in heaven get you thrown down here, which we in the Holy Family consider your life on earth as God's re-education program, his recycling bin. You transgressed up there, you fell like Sophia, and now you have to do some relearning for hopeful re-entry into heaven. Or if you show that you are incapable of learning and live a life of sin, you end up going down there, Z's. And that's the permanent trash can, the permanent dungeon. When God will not have you back no more, that's where you go. So this is going to get more interesting here. So each of these 72 demons also has a whole legion assigned to them, and these are lesser demons. Probably they could be people just like y'all that ended up down there and get assigned. These demons are your big mob boss down there, Z's, essentially, these high demons, and you're going to work for them and their crew. So there seems to be a definite hierarchy. In Egyptian mythology, they considered them to be like deities. But when you start looking at descriptions of demons in the Ars Goetia, they all kind of look like weird hybrid animals, a combination of different kinds of animals, like a bird and a reptile together in a demon. And you get the same thing with Egyptian deities too. When you look at like Ra, Anubis, or even the Sphinx, what you get is what look like hybrid creatures. Now, if they believed in the underworld and that you needed a boat to travel there, it's possible they were talking about traveling there by lava. In the Holy Family, we believe that bad souls go in the lake of fire based on certain sins. And so there would be a little bit of correlation there. The weird thing is, I love geology. I studied geology in college. I am a big, big fan of rocks and minerals, volcanoes, mountains. I'm just a huge, it's my geek area. It was my childhood. Architecture and geology were kind of childhood geek passions for me that people didn't always understand why it was important that a young holy figure would have to learn that stuff, but I found I really loved it. And so sometimes I really love watching like volcano live streams when there's a live eruption. To me, it's just thrilling and beautiful to watch Mother Nature sometimes, and it helps me relax sometimes at night. I find it therapeutic. But it also helps my ongoing learning in geology, because I am just super, it's one of the areas where I really considered majoring and getting my degree in. I loved it so darn much. I was the student that would bring in samples of my own rock from my own rock collection from home, when, you know, next week we'd be learning about this or that rock or mineral. Oh, I got one of those at home, and I'll bring it in, and then I would also be the student that after class I would be back in the lab with the professor running tests on my own rocks to try to learn more about my own rock collection's gonna probably get stolen once I'm kicked out of my home and forced to abandon all my stuff onto the streets in a locker. But I have a lifetime of collecting rocks, and I'm talking like just any ordinary rock. I would always ask people, I have this tradition, if a friend or somebody was going to go on a trip or a vacation, please bring me back a rock from that location, and put it in a bag and write down the location. It doesn't have to be the prettiest rock. Try to pick a pretty one. You try to pick an interesting one that I can like look into and run some tests on and have a bit of fun with. One time I went to Maine, and that state is a rock hound playground up there. You can find all sorts of awesome rocks just on the beach or the side of the road. You can find garnet, watermelon tourmaline, various kinds of things. That I've got one rock that I'm still trying to figure out that I got from Orr's Island up there. They had a beach full of crystals just laying there, big ones. And so I went to the little hotel on the island and was like, can I get a box? I'm gonna need to take some of these home and like study them more. And I left with like a decent size box of them. When I got home, I gave one to everyone, and I kept some for myself. They look almost a little like calcite or quartz. Real pretty. And then they've got like natural mica that grows in these cool formations with feldspar up there. It's freaking amazing up there. The geology up there, you could study for a lifetime and still be learning stuff. So I'm a bit of a geek. I could go on and on about that stuff, but it comes in handy when you're also a holy figure. And part of your job is to help God determine if souls got to go up or down. And so I really love volcanoes. I really love mountains and volcanoes. And sometimes I just like to sit and watch a live eruption while I eat dinner. Because every volcano is just so unique. But when I do this, I get lava spurts that kind of indicate how naughty someone may have been, and a confirmation of whether they landed in what I think is the intake line location down there, Z's. Because sometimes it's like the same every time. One time I went to throw a soul in, and this person was eager to go there. I'm thinking maybe that's what they wanted, because she jumped off my tool and into the lava by herself instead of me having to throw it in. And once the soul landed, it tried to make a beeline. It landed in the intake line, but further back, and tried to make a beeline around what I think may have been the outer rung and like sneak in somewhere else. And her soul got intercepted. Another little lava blob came swimming up to her little lava blob and just incinerated it. And I just sat there and watched it play out and went, what just? Now that was weird. And that's a first for a soul to jump in willingly and then just automatically make a beeline, like they're gonna take us in line. They're not gonna sit in line and follow no rules. And so sometimes I've gotten some interesting readings like that would kind of indicate to me that there's definitely some concentric rungs down there as far as the structure goes. Just the way the lava tends to move when you throw a soul in can sometimes tell you quite a bit. And you can sometimes get a life reading of depending. Sometimes you can get like, these are all the sins that they may have committed as the lava spurts up when the soul makes contact. But here's the other weird thing. I like to sit and also just watch lava flows. And everyone, you know how you can gaze up at clouds and see pictures and things in the clouds? So lava's the same way. If you've never tried it, go try this sometime when there's a live eruption and there's actual lava flows, or you can go find some videos online of lava flows. They're real pretty because they glow at night. And sometimes you can almost see what looks like the outline of various hybrid creatures. Like one time, I swear to you, I saw what looked like the outline in a lava flow of what looked like a half kingfisher and a half penguin type creature. I'm a big bird lover, so I've studied birds too. That's how I was able to identify their species. I was like, oh, well, what is that? And it was like looking at the clouds where you see pictures. You know, whether or not it's just that our eye tries to make sense of stuff and our eye sees what it wants to see and our brain tries to make sense of it, and so we see the pictures, or whether there's something truly spiritual going on, is kind of, you know, it's up to each individual's take on things until we have definitive proof of this stuff and the afterlife and stuff. The other thing that I think is interesting is when your soul goes upwards, it travels through a tunnel into a light, like a lot of coma and NDE patients say. And that was my experience in my coma too, like through the tunnel into the light. Angel took my hand, guided me. She was glowing with the light. Like the light was in her too, so her skin was all lit up. We think it's their sustenance up there, that it is, the light is partially their food source, but also possibly addictive. Sophia is depicted almost like a pregnant teenage substance addict that went too overboard with that stuff. So this light is almost like their energy source, and their food source too. It's very, very strange. And I never understood what was meant by that until I got up there myself and saw an angel with the lighter. Oh, now it makes sense. So now I get it. This light is more than just a light. It actually has divine knowledge in it and sustenance for your body or soul up there. It is like how you have to eat and take your vitamins every day to live. The light, it does that for those up there, which I thought was really interesting to get confirmation on when I was in my coma. But here's the thing. When you throw them into lava, that is another kind of light. It's a light by fire. So it seems like either way, our soul tends to travel via light, which I find really interesting, consistent in both ways. But here's the thing, we don't know. Does heaven and hell reside in the same dimension or realm or other world? Or are they two different ones, and could we be looking at a multiverse type situation where there could be numerous or endless different realms that we can't see? We're in a physical three-dimensional realm. And it's possible that while our soul is in our body, we cannot even perceive, for the most part, other realms, and that sometimes people who are maybe more psychically attuned sometimes can pick up on those things where we, wouldn't always. And so that's another theory. But also, traveling through different light methods, we in the Holy Family are still studying what happens to souls that travel via different methods. I think I've got a better understanding after my coma of how souls get to heaven, and after having to throw souls down myself, of a consistency rate with the same process works every time. And we have a number of different processes, not just one, but they seem to work the same every time. And it's, the way that I was taught. But here's the thing. What happens if you throw a soul into a supernova? the reason I started testing that one in my spare time, A, there was a supernova live cam, so there was availability, but B, there was stories, indoctrination, recruitment type stories I heard growing up for certain possible extremist groups that went like this. Once Lucifer has enough souls in hell, he's going to wage battle on heaven again. So we're talking afterlife T-ism, recruiting people that may be so gung-ho they want to continue to do that shiz in the afterlife. And that got me thinking, what if we throw too many souls at once down there? Could that ever be possible? Because the last thing I want is to get up to heaven and then have that happen once I've gone through this horrible life and I finally get up there to some peace. I don't want to have to deal with that. So should I be thinking about this as the holy figure that does this, you know, as my role and duty? Should I be thinking about it now? So I thought, you know, what are other different ways a soul could travel by light, and where do they go? Where do they end up? The problem is the kind of confirmation I get from a supernova, throwing a soul into a supernova. I've thrown a few batches in there just to try to get an idea of like, where do they go? You do get a reading. It is just very different. Instead of lava spurting up and seeing like patterns and shapes and pictures in the lava, what you get are these weird flashes of light when a soul makes contact with a supernova. And it takes longer for the soul to get there because we're talking volcanoes are on Earth with us on our same planet. You throw a soul into a supernova, sometimes you, like, I'll be sitting there waiting, and then a little solar flare will happen, and oh, there, it just made contact. So it seems to take longer too, which I find really, really interesting. How time works during this kind of soul travel is also something we know very little to nothing about. I still don't know what happened to the souls I threw into the supernova. It was just to run some tests to see if I could even get an idea, because you don't get a very good picture reading from a supernova in terms of, you know, you're having to watch this on a live telescope cam that is far, far away from the supernova, or else it would burn up, you know. So we still don't know. Various souls traveling by various light methods, what happens to them, where do they go, where do they end up? The supernova one's still a complete mystery. I know they end up landing there. I just don't know what happens. If they end up in a different dimension entirely, or what, is still completely unknown. Let's see, what else do I got here? Sylvia Brown theorized that when your soul leaves your body, that just like the umbilical cord you have attached to your mother when you're born, your soul is attached to an invisible umbilical cord of light that you can't see, that connects you back to the light in heaven to get back up to God. And that this is how they retrieve souls. I have a very brief memory. There are some people who swear they have conception or birth memories. Most people don't. You typically don't remember much of your life before the age of 5. Because your brain is not even developed enough yet. But, and I have huge missing parts of my life due to injuries and stuff. I have a snippet memory of being born and my soul going into my body shortly before I was delivered. I don't know whether it was like 20 minutes or a few hours prior, but like fairly shortly before being born. And so we don't even know in the Holy Family if your soul, you know, at what point your soul gets put into your body before you're born. We seem to be born with them. We seem to be born with them. All I remember is one moment I was in the light getting briefed about how I was going to be sent down for this lifetime. There was no one else they could choose. They needed me. It was an emergency, that I would have a free automatic pass back up there, that I was going to have to go down there and do some holy duties, try to save some stuff. And this was stuff people wouldn't let me save, and it's all a lost cause now because no one would listen. I was sent basically as like a last scion, to warn and try to prevent humanity from making some bad choices that I think they ended up making. And now I think the country and world is going to suffer. And I still think humans make the worst choices, man. I don't know what it is about getting into a human body that makes people suddenly make stupid choices in life and then just keep doing that their whole life. Once we get into our body, we can still feel a connection to the light, or at least I did, but it's dimmer. Once you are in a physical three-dimensional body, this light that you bring with you, you still have a little spark of it in you. And then we think your soul attaches to the body and then doesn't leave the body unless it feels that that life is ending. If that body's life is ending, your soul travels back up the light cord and back up into the light. And it's very strange that in NDE stories and coma stories, people say that they felt their body floating upwards at a diagonal, like up and out, which is what happened to me too. Like, I can confirm that this I went through a ton of NDE stories. So did Sylvia when she was doing research for her book about this topic. And a lot of the stories are very consistent in terms of very specific details like that, that people can recount. And so I had what would be considered your typical NDE experience. But when I was put into my body before I was born, I remember thinking, I don't want to go. That doesn't look like the right family. I don't think this is going to go well. And they were kind of already preparing me up there that it might not go well. They didn't think I would be well received. They thought it might already be a lost cause. Me and a few others were sent as a last-ditch effort. I firmly believe to this day that my childhood love, AP, may have been one of those, because I was told right before I was born that I might, just like in the movie Dogma, that you'll run into two prophets and people tell you. It was like that. Like, I really did get that spiel. No kidding, no joke. When I was being briefed before my soul went into my little baby body and I was born, I remember not wanting to go and trying to say no, and being told there was no choice, that I shouldn't have to go. They were having to pull me. See, we don't know if they recycle souls up there too, that like if you transgress up there, you have to come and do service down on earth, you know, for a lifetime, and relearn, and then you get to go back up. But for me, I had not transgressed. I was just simply needed for who I was, for this specific role. And I was trying to say, no, I'm good. And basically how it was laid out was we had to pick certain of you that had certain skill sets and we think have the ability to do this. You're going to meet some of them throughout the course of your life. You know, look for others that are like you, that have the light in them, to be able to identify them. So me and AP kind of identified each other, and we kind of bonded at a young age, and then just kind of grew up together. And by the time we were preteens, we were like a married couple for 10 years already. And we were also dance partners. So we kind of just had this weird little bond and a whole lot in common. And when he described to me what he remembers from up there's, it was very, very similar. We kind of had, it was like, oh, we came from the same place. So you were under the impression that that's how it was up there too. And we have these real deep conversations like this when we're very little, watching Saturday morning cartoons or Saturday night movies together in the living room. And he was pretty sure that we had a family business up there. It's a light city, and that it was probably a nightclub. And as he's sitting here telling me this, I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I thought too. Like I literally remember going home to hug everyone goodbye before they were going to shove me into a baby's body. And that is the same exact impression. And so our accounts added up, which when we were kids, it just kind of blew our minds that like we both thought we were from the same place and here for the same reasons. So it was a little bit like in the movie where, you'll come across two prophets that'll help guide, where we were told this before we were sent down. Like he was told some of the same stuff. And he knew to look for others too. So when we found each other, it was kind of an immediate identifying each other. And I may not have ever found all the other ones also, which is sad. I don't know that I found all the others. But we were all supposed to work together to warn and stop some bad stuff. Let's see, do I have anything else here? I think that's it. So that's what our current take within the Holy Family Grail line is. After my lifetime of research and the research that I've added and learned, and like I said, it's still only theories. We have gotten some consistent results, though, upon retesting some of these ideas that have me more inclined to believe. They say that we're not supposed to be able to see other realms while we're in our physical body. They say that if we were able to hear God's voice, that our physical bodies couldn't handle it, which makes sense. It actually makes a lot of sense that once you get into your body, there could be some physical limitations or barriers in terms of when you live in a three-dimensional physical reality, of even being able to perceive what else could be out there in other dimensions. So I know we're getting to spooky season here, and that's one of the reasons I picked this topic, as well as just, having a lifetime of study in this area. I find it an interesting topic to look into and learn about. And so if anything that I've learned can help other people feel like maybe they have a little bit better understanding, or have even just more to think about. Who knows when we'll ever officially prove any of this stuff. I think I've seen enough in my life. I've definitely, as a holy figure, had enough weird stuff happen. And I've seen enough other similar stories. So the idea is you don't want to end up going down there, Z's. You don't want someone like me to have to be the one to throw your soul down there, Z's. Although nobody gave any F's about that my whole life. It was almost like they were trying to come up to God and God's witness on earth and give God the finger through me my whole life, more than people looking at me as a holy figure that could throw their soul in the lake of fire if they sat and did horrible stuff to me or other people. And if I was going to sit there as God's witness on earth and help administer religious services, is that really the kind of person you want to go beating up on and go and doing horrible stuff to? Apparently 2 whole cities and states full of West Coasters out here in a possible T network really thought that was the way they should go in life. And so I have a life of mostly just cruelty and mistreatment and nobody listening to me, and just thinking that I was just some throwaway person. You use her to be a little Latin floozy dancer in the bar for a few years and then just throw her away. She had to learn how to walk on water as a kid to earn some titles, so can probably do a lot more stuff than you can. But, the other thing I've learned is that humans and their physical bodies have very limited thinking in terms of everything. You're self-limiting thinkers. How much of that is because you're stuck in a physical body where we can't even process things that may be from other realms or really advanced concepts about other realms? If that dumbs our souls down a bit and hinders us, all I know is that when I was back up in there in the light, I felt a whole lot smarter. It's almost like a brain castration for a soul to be put into a body. You feel a lot more limited physically, but also just in your knowledge base. Like, I remember I kept thinking and saying, when I was up there, I felt like I had the answers to everything. And when I got back down, all that started fading. And like, no, now I'm back to being a dumb human again. And going through my life watching everybody dumb human, basically. And I'm sorry, I'm going to call you all dumb humans because the United States unalived the Grail and Statue of Liberty line. And we were the ones that were trying to save you and stop some bad stuff that nobody listened to. And I think if you're gonna treat people who are here to help you like that in such large numbers, then yeah, we're gonna call humanity dumb humans from now on for however long I have left to live here. Feeling like I had that extra knowledge up there and then getting back into my body after my coma and that starting to fade, that is actually a really difficult thing for coma patients to deal with, because you can't even remember all the knowledge that you had. It's just, it was there and now it's not. So something about being in our body might also limit how much knowledge we can even hold. Which is super interesting too. And I don't know that people always think about this sort of stuff this way when they think about spiritual concepts and they think about heaven and hell and what happens to our soul after we're not here anymore. If they think about stuff like that. And so if this gives a little bit different take on this trending topic of things about hell before Halloween here, that's my take. That's my experiences. That's what I have to offer the conversation out there. And happy soon to be Halloween, everybody. Maybe if you guys like this, maybe we'll do more of these topics, because there seems to be a lot of discussion going on out there. People are saying it looks end timesy AF out there, and they're not wrong. There's been everything from what looks like a manufactured possible mob end times plan that was done by humans going on out there. But the weird thing is, there's also been some weird prophetic stuff in the stars and that may have happened, like conjunctions and eclipses that might correlate to various end times prophecies. So I can understand why people out there are having these discussions now. Now, we should have been having these discussions decades ago and not let things get to this point. Also, I will say, and no one listened to us. So I feel humans did it to themselves, made their choice. And now I'm noticing people are, these are trending topics now. That are going around out there. Is Jesus coming back? What is hell like? These discussions are out there all over the place. Now, here's the thing about whether or not Jesus comes up. Maybe we'll do that in a different topic. How about we do that in a different topic? Because I've got a very different take for you all on what that might look like, given the fact that he already gave his life once before to save his family and disciples. I think if he were to come back after the Grail line got unalived and he found out that y'all unalived his family all freaking over again, I don't know that he's going to be very happy or inclined to help humanity, considering what he had to go through last time. And this is stuff that's not really discussed in detail in the Bible, but that you just kind of have to think, how would your typical human in that situation probably think and feel? If I were Jesus and I got back here and discovered that, I'd be like, well, you guys called the end times. Here I am. And what the heck have you done to my family? You know what? Screw you all. You can handle it yourself. Bye-bye. That's what I would do. That's kind of where I'm at in life now after a life of mistreatment. Nobody valuing me as a holy figure. They wouldn't even let me go have my life. Just leave me alone and let me go have a life, start a ministry, do my own thing, be my own self-sufficient adult. They wouldn't even let me do that. So I'm pretty disappointed in humans on earth. I can only imagine that God and Jesus probably are too, but again, I feel that I was sent to this particular family line with these skills and abilities and knowledge to help you people. And I feel like after 4 decades, ain't no one learned a darn thing. You went and repeated Jesus on the cross all over again with unaliving my family. So my feelings about humanity now have changed substantially, whereas when I was a young idealistic little girl, I still thought I could get through to people. I still thought that I could make a difference. And now, decades later, I'm like, nope, just like God said before he sent me, they already felt it was a lost freaking cause, that these humans just weren't gonna freaking get it. And so I've just kind of had to throw my hands up and be like, okay, stupid humans are gonna stupid human. We did our best, me and God and NAP and whoever else he sent, and there's only so much we can do. And now that my time's limited, I would much rather spend it enjoying some end-of-life bucket list things and not stressing about it. The way I see it, if you guys started the end times, that's on you. You get to deal with it now. Once we're gone, you won't have any Holy Family miracles from people in our line, because we also believe that Jesus wasn't the only miracle manifester. Moses, Martha, Lazarus, a lot of these biblical characters may have performed miracles. We think John the Baptist had, secrets to ascension and levitating. I've been through those processes myself to earn a couple of titles, and after my coma, sometimes when your soul comes back into your body, and you bring some of the light back with you, and you had that knowledge and then it's gone, it kind of throws you for a loop, and it makes you feel you get used to your body as you go through life with it. And then when you're not in it for a while and got to go back into it, it feels awkward and clumsy all over again, if that makes sense. Your soul is having to readjust to it all over again. And so sometimes they use the ascension ritual for grounding, because my soul was having a heck of a hard time coping with being back in my body, and it was causing weird stuff to happen, like weird rando miracles, where I had gotten enough training that I had my miracles pretty well under control. When you're a little girl growing up with that stuff, these miracles can just happen whenevsies, and that's usually why we send our kids away to boarding school, which my parents were told to do, and just decided to go for maximum damage on their holy daughter, despite the Holy Family side saying don't do it. We have a specific ancient Holy Family protocol that covers everything from when you can touch us and how, to how marriages are supposed to go and who can qualify for that, to how we raise our kids. And most of none of that was followed, even though they were told they had to. And even though as the religious title holder in the family, I actually had more authority on that stuff, and the parents were actually supposed to be listening to me. So sometimes in some families, the kid can actually have more authority than the parents. Sometimes in some mob families and some religious families, or like child kings, you know, sometimes it happens. We had a child king in my family. It was me, and nobody would listen. And most of that just got disregarded. And so I ended up, you know, having to deal with bullies in school that sometimes caused weird stuff to happen. Once I resurrected a bird on the playground because that area was having a rash of unalived birds just dropping out of the sky in large numbers and like onto our school playground for weeks on end. So one day I shocked everyone by picking one up on the playground and doing the laying on of hands and bringing it back to life. Kind of like you see in the Vampire Academy movie that Lissa Dragomir does, kind of like that. And it shocked everyone. A whole playground and all the staff out there saw, freaked everyone out. So sometimes when you're a young little holy miracle worker, those kinds of things happen. And the fact that people were often shocked, but then still felt that it was okay to mistreat us as a family, to keep us trapped, when they might not have fully understood this stuff themselves and were interfering with God's plan and God's business, I find really entitled and selfish of other people. But generally what we don't want is mid-miracle mishaps from school bullies if we've got a young miracle worker. That being said, having a young miracle worker is very rare in this day and age. They said they hadn't seen one in generations, that I was the first, and so they got very, very excited to find this out. I don't even know that they were looking for it or knew that it was even still possible. So this hadn't happened in many generations. So I was the special kid in the family that I really should have been given a better life. I just had parents that weren't right, that went bad, that joined the other side and made all the worst decisions, seemingly on purpose. I think they just really, really wanted to hurt kids a lot, and including their own. Some people get very addicted to that, and that's what they get off on. And that is kind of what I allegedly had to grow up with. I'll also say this is all alleged too. I have to say that on everything. I've maintained that through all of this, just because I don't want anything coming back on me. Because I wouldn't put it past these people to, now that I'm in a walker and possibly being unalived with long, slow suffering cancer, they'll still kick me on the streets. They will still try to throw me in prison or bring a suit against me, I'm sure. Because I think these people were convinced to go way, 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 way overboard. And I think that's going to be the shiz and giggles for the orchestrators, who may have partially been my own parents, allegedly. Their own little, you know how Charles Manson got good at getting other people to do the unaliving for him and doing whatever he wanted? So some people also really get off on that, is getting other people to hurt other people for them. And so because that might be an element, I wouldn't be surprised if they will go to that. I bet you they do. I bet you they do go all the way through with dehoming me, not letting me get any compensation or justice. Everything that I called in advance, I bet you they follow it to the T. I bet you they will still try to put me in prison. I bet you they will still try to take my rights. I bet you they will follow every order, including defiling me one last time on my D-bed when I'm screaming in agony in my last days. Because some people, and if that says how disgusting that some people in this, that plan this for me, might think, how disturbing that is, don't worry, souls went down, lots of them, lots and lots across 2 states. Pretty much anyone that does anything to me nowadays is getting an automatic curse and their soul gets thrown down, because I'm just not putting up with it anymore. You do anything to me, I sense the slightest shenanigans from somebody, if they look like they're fishing for information, if they look like they're doing favors of any kind, doing anything to try to hinder me, their soul automatically goes down. I don't care who they are, why they're doing it, what they're getting out of it. A sin is a sin, and helping with something like that when I've gone through 4 decades of trauma and pain and mistreatment is far beyond disgusting to sit there and pile it on in someone's last days and not even give them a chance to have any peace in their final days. Is so beyond disgusting. But they wanted several anything goes unalivings, and they picked me for that because they thought it would look real good to do to a famous holy figure later. So it'll be on all them later. Even if nothing comes of it, 2 whole cities and states help keep my family trapped and do this to us for decades and decades. So that's a whole lot of people that probably need some accountability here. Curses and throwing souls in is the best I can do, because I will not do anything physically myself for my own protection, and just because my health isn't great. But I'm real disappointed in you humans in America. You all act like selfish, entitled toddlers that think you can just take whatever from anyone, don't have to give anything back, and can go on living a lie in your life, showing your face out there like you're not that kind of person when deep down you know you are. So the last thing I'll say is, if you're a person that is concerned about whether or not they might be going to heaven or hell, stop and think. People get so used to lying to themselves and living a lie and carrying on a superficial act out there that sometimes they get to the point where they start to believe it. And this is how they continually self-rationalize continuing to live life that way. Is they get very good at playing it down with themselves, justifying it with themselves. And if you feel like you're one of those people that know deep down that the face you are putting out there to the world is not the real one, you're the kind of soul that goes down. Typically. Now, the way that I had to do this, just because there's so many souls that have to go down, if you guys are looking at an end times thing in America and y'all seem like you're really gonna hold on for that weird shiz, and it seems like so many people in America are getting themselves prepared for that, and instead of changing it or not helping that, everything seems to be full steam ahead with an end times plan being carried out in this country, which is going to be catastrophic and devastating to the country, just so people know. I don't know how people think they're going to hold their heads high out there. I don't know how people can look at themselves in the mirror, but if you feel like you're one of those people that's living a lie, what I did, because a lot of souls are going to have to go down, is I did this thing called a pre-default set for all your souls. If you continue the way you are or always have been, and you know that it is the wrong way in life, upon the time of your unaliving, your souls will automatically now default down. Just because I might not be here to do it for you all, and in the end times, only 144,000 are sealed for heaven. That means out of millions of Christians, not everyone's going to be going up there. Although how you interpret that to can be different across different denominations and different schools of thought. This whole notion of sealing a certain number of people from a certain number of tribes, does going back to heaven only entail your lineage? Or because it also seems to have you got to be a good person and avoid these sins, these certain sins and stuff, in order to earn a spot back up there. And that was also written a long time ago, when that may have been their typical sample population back then at that time too. Humanity's grown a lot since. We've got over 8.2 billion people on this planet now, across a lot of different faiths. And what that means for your souls is we've got a 2,000-year gap in stuff that the Holy Family can't necessarily know. So what I did, just because it looks like a ton of people in America are going to have to go down from 3 decades of lives of crime and shenanigans, and going about life the wrong way, is I made it a default setting sort of thing, so that if you are that kind of person and you continue to live that way, all your souls are automatically gonna now default down as people pass away. It was just easier that way. I was getting tired of throwing big batches in. When I round up big batches, I don't even always know who's in them. What I do is I set parameters of, I'm gonna gather up all the souls that may have committed this or that, and however big the batch is, it all goes in at once. And then the lava spurt's really, really big too. The more souls you throw in, it tends to spurt a whole lot bigger. Is another consistent result that I've gotten in this stuff. So that's the way things will go forward. I did put some people in line for a chance at a life review up there. You do have to go through a life review at the pearly gates. There's gates up there too, and you'll have to go through a light and up to the gates, and you'll go through a life review up there too. Either way, I would have much rather sent a whole lot more people up that way. But after the life I've had and what I've seen happen in America, we're talking a 90s homeless crisis. That's a whole lot of sinners right there. And I'm not talking the homeless kids. I'm saying everybody in the country that sat and let that happen and didn't bat an eye and didn't immediately get up and collectively make their voices known, protesting in the streets. Why is our government allowing this? When you stand by as a silent bystander and you let bad stuff happen to other people, God doesn't like that shiznit either. That doesn't make you less guilty. In the Holocaust in Germany, it took a whole country of silent bystanders and thus enablers in order for the atrocities to have gotten so big and bad, for them to have gotten so much power. If people maybe had stood up sooner in larger numbers, and that's how these sorts of things happen, and that's what it looks like is happening in America, or has happened, is people have become complacent. They've become morally, instead of thinking in terms of right or wrong, I don't even know that people think that way anymore. They're just going to do what they're going to do, regardless, is kind of more the sense I get with how people today think. Is they don't even seem to be focusing on whether each decision they make is a morally good one or not. But you should be asking, does it make you a good person if you do this or that? And if your answer is no, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Which is the best advice I can give to you and your soul in terms of having a chance at heaven. Is if you have to lie to yourself like that, we don't need you up there. Things don't work that way up there. Things work on an honesty policy, on an everybody does their part policy, and everybody abides by certain rules in order to have a peaceful, happy coexistence up there. And if you're one of the ones that can't, you end up getting thrown back down here for some learning. And then if you can't learn down here, you go down there's for all eternity. So I think a lot of people in America may have just lost their last chance to ever go to heaven by their own choices and by all of this having continued for 3 decades across the country. So food for thought there. Maybe we'll do a couple more of these as we get closer to Halloween. I love Halloween. It's a holiday that we also celebrate in the Holy Family, but for other reasons. We believe that this is when the veil between our physical world and other worlds are thinnest. And so in pagan and Wiccan practices, sometimes they believe that is one of the best nights to do magic on, that it will work better or be more effective, because the theory in types of magic like hedge magic is utilizing thin spaces, like Portland, Oregon might be a thin space. Portland, Oregon sits on a ley line convergence, and they do seem to have a bit more weird paranormal and just weird stuff that happens there. It's a weird little magic city. Between magic possibly being more effective down there on a ley line convergence, which would be like a thin space in hedge magic or going over the hedge. It just seems that certain areas, like Stonehenge and stuff on the planet, just might be a little bit more conducive to stuff like that. And then we think there's certain times of year where that could be the case too, Halloween being one of them. So it's a holiday that I like, even if it kind of comes from a different faith and tradition and practice. So maybe we'll do a couple more of these before Halloween. If I keep seeing the discussions going on out there, it sounds like a lot of people have a lot of questions and are doing a lot of thinking based on how the country and the world looks right now. And you should be, because if there really is something going on, if it could be the end, do you guys just want to sit there and let it happen like idiots? Or do you want to try to stop it and prevent it while you still can? Do you want to keep going about your life having to lie to yourself? Or do you want to take your last chance to try to get right with God, do right by the people around you? So I'll leave you with that, because I always like to attach lessons to things that people can hopefully think about and learn from, because I am a minister after all. So got to do a little bit of that too. God bless, and see you next time.